So the next question is, who is going to be the replacement potentially for Dillon Danis if KSI goes ahead with his fight here in 10 days? His boxing match people are talking about online. I'm seeing Joe Fournier, who is slated to be on that undercard, and fighting a different opponent is the guy. And Joe Fournier, interestingly enough, he was the one who had Julia Rose, Jake Paul's, girlfriend, in his corner in one of the other fights. I believe it was the Ben Askren fight. So a little bit of background history with him, but he had a very, I think it was a rapper or something like that in terms of his opponent in that fight, and it wasn't much of a match at all. I can't help but personally, float the names. Obviously, Tommy Fury, I had already mentioned, but then what about Anthony for real, the guy who was there, sort of started that altercation in the parking lot, almost on behalf of KSI against Dillon Danis, but a guy who probably, could generate some interest in the fight and would jump in there and do it, and I wonder what he would think, whether he would do it or whether KSI would entertain even fighting him at the last minute, someone with an MMA background like Dillon Danis, and someone who's obviously been in a fair amount of the boxing matches, the YouTube boxing, and might be someone who would jump in there at the last minute. But then again, is that someone who could generate any interest? But I think it would be a legitimate fighter for KSI to face. You know what I mean, in terms of an opponent with a little bit of credibility and skills behind him versus someone like we saw with KSI last time. It was very anticlimactic. It wasn't much of a match. And are we going to see a trend of that kind of thing where we're seeing the YouTube star sort of just like we've got to hand it to Jake Paul. When Jake Paul fought recently, his last opponent, someone who, he didn't tip over. You know what I mean? When we saw Ben Askren tip over, we saw, Robinson go down easily against Jake Paul. Tyron Woodley, there's at least a little bit of fight. But, obviously, there's a big question with some of these fights. Is it rigged? You know what I mean? And when we're seeing people pull out at the last minute, we can tell that that was not a rigged fight in any shape or form. But we're again asking, what did KSI do in terms of a contract change, a rehydration clause? What is going on behind the scenes that motivated Dillon Danis to pull out, and who's going to step in to fill his shoes at the last minute? And is it going to be entertaining? Is it going to be something to watch, or is it going to be something we're not even going to tune into? Is the problem.